In this presentation, we will discuss payroll considerations and forms within QuickBooks. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info. Here we are on the home page. We currently have the open windows open. In order to open the open windows, you want to go to the view drop down and go to the open windows list. There's going to be different types of options that QuickBooks provides in order to help with the payroll considerations, in order to help us with compliance with regard to payroll considerations. As we set up the payroll process within QuickBooks, we will have an interview process, and that interview process will help us to go through the normal kind of setup process, what QuickBooks needs in order to process payroll. And note that that's going to differ from company to company, of course. We may be processing in terms of how often we process payroll. Do we do it monthly? Do we do it weekly? Do we do it bi-weekly? Do we do it semi-monthly? And that process can be done as we first set up payroll, and that'll go through the interview process. One way to get there is to go to the employees drop downs, and we want to go to the payroll setup process. That'll give us our general information, and we can practice that even with a manual payroll, with a free payroll within the desktop version, and go through that setup process and see how some of these different options can be put into place. Really worth doing that. It's worth starting different types of payroll files, putting them in place with different types of payroll settings, especially different settings with regard to offering different types of options and benefits and compensation, as well as salary versus hourly. We'll take a look at a few of these options as we go through example problems through these setup options, and setting up different payroll schedules, paying monthly, paying weekly, paying bi-weekly, semi-monthly. Note that these will also differ in terms of how much help QuickBooks will give with regard to what payroll we are paying for. There's different levels of payroll. We'll discuss more of the benefits of each payroll level at a later time, but note that payroll is linked in some ways to human resources and regulations related to payroll. And so it's nice to have some support in terms of guidance for those regulations. And some of the paid versions of payroll, as well as outside payroll companies, can really be helpful to make sure that we are in compliance with any kind of regulations that are in place with regard to payroll. If we go into the Payroll Center, this is the paid version of payroll. Then we also have some more information here to help guide us. So we have quick guides that are useful. We've got the before hire guides, the payroll tips, and the direct deposit guides. If we were to look at a few of those guides, there's the tips before you hire tips, and we're talking about employees versus a contractor. Get your employer identification number. We'll discuss a few of these items as we go through our payroll processing here as well. Gather employee paperwork. It'll talk about the guidance for what type of paperwork we need. Post labor law posters. This again, it's going to be more in the compliance side rather than just the processing side, making sure we're doing some of maybe the more human resources, or making sure that we have the right compliance within the environment of our workplace. Get workers' compensation insurance, so you can read through that information. Closing that back out, if we look at the payroll tips guide, we're going to have some more information that's useful within QuickBooks, including the setup payroll, to set up the payroll schedules, creating the paychecks. These are going to be hyperlinks that we can go through here. Know all the ways you can make employee checks or pay stubs available. And again, that has to do somewhat with processing payroll, but also with compliance. What do we need to give to the employee in terms of pay stubs? When you hire new employees, add their information to QuickBooks. When you need to add new paycheck items, either additions or deductions, set up payroll items. We'll discuss some of these items as we go through the setup process. We'll have guides to using the setup of employees' payroll information. I'm going to close this one back out. Similar guides to setting up the direct deposit. And so there's going to be options in terms of how can we get that direct deposit set up. So this paid version is going to give us some more detail in here about how to set up the process and some guidance for more of the human resources side of things. We also have the help within the paid version of actually processing the payroll forms, meaning if you used a manual version. So I'm going to go over to the file forms section now. And this, again, is one of the major things that we're paying for within payroll, especially with the federal and the state forms within payroll. So if we get the setup within payroll that we're paying for, they can give us both federal and state. Very helpful. And the payroll forms within here are going to be the 941s, the 940 year end, the W-2s and W-3s. If we can get everything properly set up in terms of the interview process, the items that are set up within payroll, process the payroll properly, then QuickBooks can generate these forms for us, the 941s, the 940 at the year end, the W-2 and the W-3, and we can just go in here and basically run this report. If I just double click on it and put the year in here, then this is the that's fine. We'll be able to generate this report just like this and be able to see what is happening as we go. And our goal here then, from a payroll perspective, is to be able to look at these numbers and say, are these numbers reasonable? Is QuickBooks doing what we would expect it to do within reason? We don't need to know everything about it, but we need to know within reason to see if something is way out of whack so that we can go in and see if it is, how to troubleshoot a problem such as that. And we'll talk a little bit more how to do that as we go through the payroll process. It'll be easier for us to do that. So note that payroll, if we have the paid payroll version, will allow us to go through and set up these forms and do a lot of this automatically with an automated process. However, we still need to know what is happening through that automated process so that we can troubleshoot any problems within it. And also, so if we're working outside of payroll, if we just have a question from our employees, or if we're working with a third-party vendor, we have some idea of what this is going to do in terms of our financial statements and how we can troubleshoot any problems within the payroll setup. Of course, for more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info.